All right, don't tell President Trump, but Obamacare is not dead. He says it is. Trump said that the repeal of the individual mandate in the tax bill means that Obamacare is essentially repealed. It doesn't. But new figures reveal that enrollment in Obamacare remains strong despite numerous hurdles, despite them trying to squash it down and kill it. The head of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services revealed yesterday that 8.8 million people signed up for insurance on the federal health care exchange during the latest open enrollment period. That figure topped some expectations and was down only slightly from last year's 9.2 million signups. Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell appears ready to move on from trying to dismantle the Affordable Care Act. Speaking with NPR yesterday, the Republican leader said he is hoping to spend much of 2018 focusing on issues which his party can work on with at least some Democrats in the Senate. McConnell said in part, quote, "We obviously were unable to completely repeal and replace with a 52 to 48 Senate," adding, "We'll have to take a look at what that looks like with a 51 to 49 Senate, but I think we'll probably move on to other issues," referring to the new challenges the Republicans face once Democratic Senator-elect Doug Jones takes office next month. What issues could that be? And it sounds like they're giving up on trying to repeal Obamacare. And Yamiche, it seems like the president just wants to put the veil of "I repealed Obamacare" out there, but the truth is he didn't.
The truth is that Obamacare has actually, I think, really become part of the culture of America. People now expect that they will not be denied coverage because of pre-existing conditions. People expect that there will be a bottom line. Things like maternity care will be covered by your health insurance no matter what you have. And gone are essentially the days where people thought, if I can't afford health care, I can only go to the ER. I think there are a lot of people out in the country, and this is what Democrats wanted. A lot of people out in the country who really like this bill. And the repealing the individual mandate will, of course, strike some sort of a blow to it. But as you saw, the numbers of people signing up for the health care law are increasing by the day. And that's of course, without President Trump really doing anything to help it. So, no, I think that Mitch McConnell is essentially making the argument now that they want to get to something way less complex, which is kind of hard to do because the president has, of course, said that he wants to now tackle infrastructure. He wants to try to deal with the opioid crisis. But essentially, Mitch McConnell, I think, has found out that repealing Obamacare the way that they had promised to do it is something that's just too hard to do.
So, Bob Costa, you had the President of the United States 2 days ago at that grand ceremony at the White House saying essentially that Obamacare had been repealed. That was his quote, essentially repealed because they got the individual mandate into the tax bill, the repealing of the individual mandate in the tax bill. Is that good enough then for the Republicans, not just for the president, but for Mitch McConnell and congressional Republicans, for them to say, we did our part, we went after it, we weren't able to fully repeal and replace this year, but we got that bit out of it, and we're ready to turn the corner? Or is there some appetite still to pick apart this now popular Obamacare, for which almost 9 million people signed up in this latest enrollment period?
Willie, there is an appetite in the Republican base, and the president says that sort of thing to appeal to that Republican base. At the same time, the future of Obamacare is more complicated. Part of the reason Republicans were able to pass this tax bill and get Senator Susan Collins of Maine and other moderates to come along is that congressional leaders promised her and other moderates that they would do more in the coming months to have actual votes to try to shore up the insurance markets, to stabilize aspects of the Affordable Care Act. And so you see an acknowledgement in many Republican circles that the Affordable Care Act, as Yamiche aptly said, is here to stay, is part of the culture. They know they can't ever really acknowledge that politically because the fight never ends politically in the GOP when it comes to Obamacare. But legislatively, they're not trying to take it up by its roots and discard it.
Hey, John, it's Donnie. I want to, coming off Obama, the repeal of Obamacare and the tax plan, I think we've witnessed in 2017 Trump's version of Trump University. Come follow me, fellows. Follow the rich guy. I'm going to get you rich. Where at the end of the day, he's really just picking people's pockets. Is there any kind of historical reference back to a president that kind of sold a bill of goods, if you will? The individual mandate repeal is going to cause people's premiums to go up. Joe talked earlier about the end of this, that the middle class's taxes are actually going to be going up. Any historical reference to a president that kind of pulled one over, if you will, and when the Roosters came home, had to pay for it?
Well, I mean, pulling one over consciously is rare, but the backlash that happens to almost every incumbent, or at least every controversial incumbent, 2 years in, is pretty formidable. Whether it's President Obama in 2010, the exception was President Bush in 2002, in part because of the attacks. The election that sent Joe to Washington in 1994, in which the Republicans carried the House for the first time in 40 years. It's sort of hard to believe, but from 1954 to 1994, the Democrats controlled the House. There was a huge backlash against President Clinton's seemingly too far left first 2 years, forced him back to the center. Goes all the way back, goes deep, but in modern history to 1966, when a huge Republican wave came in after the big 1964 win for Lyndon Johnson. Two things happened 1,000 days after Johnson defeated Goldwater. The Republicans had a huge midterm, and Ronald Reagan became governor of California. So if you look at that particular moment to this one, it is possible that what you're going to see next year is a Democratic revival. You've already seen it in Alabama. You know, two of the great mysteries of 2017. Donald Trump is president of the United States, and there's a Democratic senator from Alabama. You know, UFOs are next, and so yeah, there is a backlash. I think there's a big wave, it seems to me, in terms of the polling coming, and a lot of states that did not seem to be in play for the congressional elections will be.
Joe.
Well, we've got the UFOs too, so we've had all three of those in 2017.
Yeah, that's true.
So John, it's one of the last times we will be talking to you at the end of 2017. I'm sure you've thought about it as a presidential historian, as a historian generally. I'm sure you've thought about it a good bit, especially as we move towards the end of 2017 and move into 2018. I've had some people tell me they believe 2018 is going to be perhaps the most tumultuous political year of our lifetime, or at least since 1968 for some of us a little bit older. How do you summarize all the events that have taken place in 2017 and where we find ourselves, with a little bit of perspective now, with a little bit of context 12 months in?
Well, this is going to be a consequential president. The difference is our great presidents are the ones who, whether it's Franklin Roosevelt or Lyndon Johnson or Ronald Reagan, they're the ones who reached out beyond their tribal base and appealed to people's hopes rather than their fears. What we saw yesterday at the United Nations, what we see constantly, is a president who, it's a bad joke, but it's apropos. We used to have a bully pulpit, now we just have a bully in the pulpit. Mm-hmm. And I think that culturally, that's the historical reality, is that this will be a period that will be studied for a long, long time to come, to assess to what extent does an unconventional, raw, no holds barred way of being affect the presidency. We know that the presidency has not changed Donald Trump. What we don't know yet is whether Donald Trump has permanently changed the presidency.
That is a big question mark for the next year. John Meacham, thank you very much. And